Far from the cameras and the headlines, a storm was brewing. Israel launched its midnight strike. Precise, calculated, and bold. The kind of strike meant to crush morale, to send a message that no one is safe, not even in their sleep. But what happened next? That shocked everyone. Because sometimes it's not the bombs that shake the world, it's the silence that follows, the calm, the discipline, the unbreakable will of a people who refuse to bow. This isn't just about missiles or borders. This is about something far deeper. Tonight, I'm taking you inside a story of power, fear, and a level of courage the world didn't expect to see. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why this midnight strike didn't just fail, it exposed a strength the world couldn't ignore. Israel's midnight strike was not a random act of aggression, but a carefully calculated move designed to send a message of control and intimidation. Under the cover of darkness, Israeli warplanes executed precision airstrikes on targets that were allegedly linked to Iranian operatives and Hezbollah positions spread across Syria and Lebanon. The timing was strategic, aiming to catch these forces off guard while civilians slept, amplifying the psychological effect of the attack. The message was clear. Israel was willing to act boldly, swiftly, and without warning to assert its dominance over what it views as hostile forces encroaching on its borders. This was not simply a military maneuver, but an attempt to demonstrate technological superiority, intelligence capabilities, and an unflinching resolve to strike at its adversaries anywhere and any time. For years, Israel has conducted similar strikes across Syria, targeting convoys, storage facilities, and infrastructure believed to be part of Iran's expanding regional footprint. These strikes are part of what Israel calls its war between the wars, a continuous campaign to disrupt the transfer of advanced weaponry and prevent Iran from entrenching itself militarily too close to Israeli territory. This particular midnight strike was more aggressive, signaling perhaps a response to recent developments, growing tensions, or intelligence that suggested an imminent threat. The darkness offered tactical advantages, reduced visibility for air defenses, minimize civilian activity that could complicate the operation, and the added psychological impact of attacking while the enemy is most vulnerable. By striking at night, Israel also sought to control the media narrative. Images of explosions lighting up the sky, footage of sirens blaring in Lebanese or Syrian cities, and the fear generated by sudden unexpected violence would quickly spread across news outlets and social media platforms. The goal was to showcase Israel's reach and power, not only to its enemies, but to its own population and international allies. It served as a warning shot, a display of readiness to escalate if provoked, while daring Iran and Hezbollah to retaliate. Yet, behind the confidence of the strike lay the ever-present danger of escalation. Every such attack carries with it the risk of igniting a broader conflict. Israel calculated that its technological edge, intelligence superiority, and prior successes would deter immediate retaliation. But what followed after this midnight strike would prove that its assumptions about Iran's and Hezbollah's resilience were far more complicated than expected. Israel's calculated midnight strike was expected to provoke panic, disarray, or at least a quick retaliatory outburst that could justify further escalation. But what unfolded next defied those expectations. Both Iran and Hezbollah responded not with emotional outbursts or reckless counterattacks, but with a level of calm and discipline that shocked even seasoned observers. Iran's leadership maintained composure, issuing strong condemnations while signaling that any response would be measured, strategic, and on their terms. This calculated patience reflected not weakness, but a mastery of psychological and strategic warfare. Iran understood that immediate retaliation might play directly into Israel's hands, providing justification for broader military engagement or dragging in powerful allies like the United States. Instead, Iran made it clear that while they would not forget the aggression, they would choose the time and method of response based on their own calculus. In Lebanon, Hezbollah displayed a similar level of disciplined restraint. The group, known for its fierce and often immediate reactions to Israeli provocations, held back from launching missiles or cross-border raids in the aftermath of the strike. Instead, Hezbollah reinforced its positions, heightened its state of alert, and allowed the narrative to unfold in the media and among its supporters. Hassan Nasrallah, Hezbollah's leader, addressed the situation with deliberate clarity, warning that the rules of engagement had not changed, but that responses would be carefully weighed. This unified and measured stance between Iran and Hezbollah sent a powerful message. They would not allow themselves to be baited into an uncontrolled spiral of violence. The world watched as this unexpected restraint played out, realizing that the relationship between Israel and its adversaries had entered a far more complex phase. This was not a game of simple retaliation anymore, but one of strategic patience, where each move carried consequences far beyond the battlefield. Iran and Hezbollah's calculated response revealed a deep confidence in their own deterrence capabilities and long-term strategy. They demonstrated that their strength was not just in missiles or fighters, but in their ability to absorb strikes without collapsing into chaos. This level of discipline turned the tables psychologically, making Israel question the effectiveness of its midnight gamble. The silence that followed the strikes was not the silence of fear, but the silence of calculation, resilience, and long-term vision. In that quiet, a new kind of message was delivered to the world. The real power lies in knowing when to strike and when to wait. The choice of striking at midnight was not simply a tactical military decision. It was a deliberate act of psychological warfare designed to instill fear and uncertainty in Iran, Hezbollah, and the wider region. Darkness has always been a tool in the arsenal of psychological dominance. It creates vulnerability, confusion, and disorientation. When the silence of the night is broken by sudden explosions and airstrikes, the message extends far beyond the immediate physical damage. It penetrates the minds of those under attack, suggesting that danger can strike at any moment, even in the supposed safety of sleep. Israel understood that the psychological impact of such timing could be as effective as any missile launched or target destroyed. By launching the attack while civilians, military personnel, and political leaders were at rest, Israel aimed to project an image of omnipresent superiority capable of reaching deep into enemy territory. Without warning, the midnight strike sought to unnerve command structures, force hurried responses, and create a sense of helplessness among Iran and Hezbollah's leadership. It was intended to disrupt confidence, making leaders second-guess their security protocols and operational readiness. The attack could have easily triggered miscalculations, with sleep-deprived commanders reacting hastily, potentially leading to unintended escalations. But instead, what followed was a remarkable demonstration of psychological strength on the part of Iran and Hezbollah. Rather than succumbing to panic, they maintained operational discipline. Their calm reaction neutralized the intended psychological blow, turning Israel's psychological warfare into a failed gamble. The psychological element extended beyond the battlefield to the global stage. Images of explosions lighting up the night sky, sirens wailing, and reports of Israeli jets flying unchallenged were meant to spread through international media, reinforcing the narrative of Israeli dominance. Israel hoped to shape public perception, both within its borders and among its Western allies, showcasing its continued ability to act decisively against Iran's expanding influence in the region. But the restrained and composed reaction from Iran and Hezbollah shifted the narrative. Instead of projecting fear and vulnerability, they demonstrated strategic maturity, transforming Israel's psychological warfare into a display of their own resilience. This ability to absorb the shock of a midnight assault without falling into disarray sent a powerful message to both their adversaries and observers around the world. It showed that while Israel may control the timing of an attack, it does not control the outcome of the broader confrontation. The psychological battlefield, once assumed to be Israel's domain, was now equally occupied by adversaries who refused to break under pressure. The midnight strike did not just echo across the borders of Syria, Lebanon, and Iran. It sent shockwaves throughout the entire Middle East and drew the attention of global powers who closely monitored every move. In a region already simmering with tension, even a single airstrike can act as a spark, threatening to ignite a much larger conflict. Israel's strike was seen not only as an act of aggression, but as a dangerous escalation that could easily pull neighboring countries, major powers, and international organizations into a broader confrontation. Governments from Washington to Moscow, from Riyadh to Beijing began to analyze the implications of the attack, aware that the fragile balance of power in the Middle East could shift dramatically based on how the next few hours and days would unfold. The fact that Iran and Hezbollah did not respond impulsively only deepened the anxiety in diplomatic circles. The calm after such a bold strike created a tension of its own. Global leaders recognize that a restrained response often signals preparation for something larger and more calculated rather than weakness. This silence, filled with strategic patience, was louder than any missile fired. Intelligence agencies across the world increased surveillance, military forces were put on higher alert, and diplomatic back channels were flooded with urgent messages seeking clarity on intentions and possible next steps. The risk of a regional war involving multiple states and non-state actors, including the involvement of global superpowers, became a real concern. The delicate alliances and rivalries that define the Middle East made every decision in the aftermath of the strike potentially explosive. The media amplified these shockwaves even further. News outlets broadcast images of burning targets, air raid sirens, and political statements from all sides, fueling public fears of imminent war. Analysts debated scenarios of how quickly a confrontation between Israel, Iran, and Hezbollah could escalate into something far more catastrophic. The global public watched in suspense, aware that the consequences of a single strike could ripple far beyond the region's borders, potentially disrupting oil markets, refugee flows, and global stability. The strategic patience demonstrated by Iran and Hezbollah amid these regional shockwaves shifted the narrative from Israel's initial display of dominance to a broader reflection on the region's fragile stability. It exposed how easily the Middle East can be pushed to the brink and how much discipline and calculated restraint are required to prevent chaos. This event became a case study in how modern warfare is no longer only about missiles and bombs, but about the powerful, unpredictable chain reactions that follow a single act of aggression. One of the most surprising elements that emerged from Israel's midnight strike was the remarkable unity displayed between Iran, Hezbollah, and Lebanon. For years, many external observers and even regional powers had speculated that under serious military pressure, cracks would begin to show within these alliances. Some expected Lebanon's fragile political landscape to fracture, Hezbollah's leadership to face internal dissent, or Iran's proxies to act independently in ways that could disrupt coordinated responses. But what unfolded after the strike told a different story, one that caught many by surprise and sent a clear message to both allies and adversaries. Iran and Hezbollah presented a united front, operating with a shared strategy and seamless coordination that reflected years of careful planning and deep-rooted mutual trust. Lebanese political factions, despite their often fractious internal debates, largely rallied around a narrative of national sovereignty and resistance to external aggression. The attack was not seen purely as a strike against Hezbollah or Iranian interests, but as a violation of Lebanese airspace and an attack on Lebanese dignity itself. This response helped neutralize attempts to isolate Hezbollah within the broader Lebanese society, instead solidifying its position as part of Lebanon's defensive fabric. The Lebanese government's measured but firm diplomatic statement signaled that while political divisions may exist, when confronted with foreign aggression, unity remains possible. Hezbollah's disciplined leadership played a crucial role in maintaining this unity. Hassan Nasrallah's carefully crafted public statements were neither overly provocative nor submissive. He addressed the people with a mixture of firmness and calm, acknowledging the seriousness of the attack while emphasizing that Hezbollah's response would be deliberate and effective when the time was right. This approach prevented rash reactions from lower ranks or sympathetic groups across a region who might have sought immediate retaliation, which could have spiraled into uncontrolled escalation. Iran's coordination with Hezbollah further demonstrated the depth of their alliance. Tehran communicated closely with Beirut, ensuring that any potential retaliation would align with broader strategic goals rather than emotional impulses. Iran's experience in navigating high-pressure situations allowed it to guide its allies through the storm, reinforcing a sense of solidarity that extended beyond mere military cooperation. This alliance is built on shared ideology, mutual interest, and a collective understanding that their survival depends not only on firepower, but on disciplined, united resistance. The world watched this display of unity with a mix of respect and concern. What Israel may have hoped would destabilize its adversaries instead strengthen the very alliances it sought to fracture. The midnight strike, intended to divide, unintentionally broadcasted a powerful image of coordinated resilience that shifted the balance of psychological advantage in the ongoing struggle. The events following Israel's midnight strike became more than a localized military incident. They transformed into a powerful global message that defiance, not fear, defines the heart of Iran, Hezbollah, and Lebanon's resistance. Despite the sophisticated weaponry, the precision strikes, and the overwhelming military might on Israel's side, what captured the world's attention was the refusal of the targeted nations to crumble under pressure. In an era where many expect smaller nations and groups to collapse or submit when faced with superior force, the calm and calculated response from Iran and Hezbollah stood out as a bold statement of self-determination and dignity. It told the world that real strength does not always lie in how many missiles one can fire, but in how steady one can remain when provoked. The defiance shown was not rooted in arrogance, but in a deeply held conviction that their cause was just, their people resilient, and their alliances strong. Israel's strike was designed to intimidate and destabilize, but instead, it highlighted a resistance that has been carefully forged through years of struggle, sacrifice, and preparation. This was not the defiance of reckless aggression, but of strategic maturity, where every move is calculated to preserve strength maintain unity, and send a clear message to adversaries and supporters alike. The image of leaders refusing to be baited into rash retaliation became an emblem of disciplined resistance, something that resonates deeply with oppressed people and movements worldwide who understand the power of controlled defiance. Beyond the region, nations observing this confrontation saw a living example of how asymmetric power can challenge even the most advanced militaries. Smaller nations and non-state actors took note of how resilience, unity, and strategic patience could serve as equalizers in an otherwise uneven global landscape. Iran, Hezbollah, and Lebanon, through their response, reaffirmed their position as symbols of enduring resistance against what they view as unjust aggression and foreign interference. In the broader struggle for global influence, this event reminded major powers that military superiority does not automatically translate into political victory or psychological dominance. The ability to stand firm, to absorb a blow, and not lose composure carries immense weight on the global stage. For many across the world, the story of this confrontation became an inspiration, a testament that even under the darkest skies, courage can outshine missiles, and faith in one's cause can silence the loudest explosions. This is the message that echoed beyond the borders of the Middle East, reaching every corner of the world, where people yearn to stand tall against forces greater than themselves. And when the dust settled, the world saw something far more powerful than any missile strike. They saw a people who refused to bend, a nation that stood tall while the world watched, expecting them to fall. Israel's midnight strike was meant to break their will,